This is a true story, narrated by the owner of the YouTube channel, Mr.Hao Ghost Story. The story is divided into three parts with titles. The Haunted Hospital in New York. We invite the audience to listen along. The Haunted Hospital in New York. Part 1. Please allow me to begin. At 11 p.m., I sat quietly in the hospital, staring blankly at the ceiling, feeling disheartened. The dim tube lights cast a gloomy glow that didn't quite reach my eyes, leaving me furrowing my brows. I sighed. My friend named Henry had just had a motorcycle accident. Someone called me a little after 9 p.m. As soon as I heard the call, I had a bad feeling. They asked if I was Min, the person who made the last call for this victim. Victim sounded too heavy. I just quickly replied yes. On the other end of the line, they continued, stating that the victim was a young man between 22 and 24 years old, just in a motorcycle accident, currently in the district hospital, needing someone familiar to come and confirm the information. After catching the last bits of words, I noted down the room number and immediately drove to the hospital. My mind was blank at that moment, not from worry, just from sheer surprise. Henry was my roommate, and we worked at the same steel company, headquartered in New York City. In the room, there were two other guys, all from different provinces, and we had been living together for 8 or 9 months. We all knew Henry's personality. He was tall but not bulky. I thought he was a bit naive, often teased by the ethnic minority girls who came by our place. The thing was, I had never seen him argue with anyone because Henry was careful, not a heavy drinker, didn't smoke in front of women, didn't speed recklessly, especially at night. This guy was cautious, yet Henry had an accident. In the afternoon, he took his motorcycle to give a girl from work a ride home. It was past 8 p.m. when I called to ask him to buy some cigarettes for us. He just said his sister was staying for dinner. I knew that, and I thought, you're lucky, man, making her parents happy. Not bad to marry into the mountainous region, huh? After 9 p.m., Henry had the accident, probably on his way back. At the hospital, the first thing I did was rush to the reception desk to ask the nurse which way to room 301, where the motorcycle accident victim was. The nurse kindly directed me to the 3rd floor, first room on the left side of the hallway. Since it was late, the hospital was deserted. There were only 2 lit rooms on the 3rd floor, room 301 and another one at the end of the hallway. I opened the door and walked in. The first sensation was a strange chill blowing from inside the room, followed by a mixed scent of blood and antiseptic. Lastly, there was the very friendly smile of the nurse checking on Henry. She wasn't pretty, but she smiled kindly, at least more pleasant than the person lying on the bed. "Are you a family member of the patient?" the nurse asked. "No, I'm his friend," I replied. "He just got 11 stitches on his left leg from us. The injury isn't severe. He was still conscious when he arrived. The person who brought him said he hit the median strip. Besides the 11 stitches, does he have any other injuries?" "No head or facial injuries. His left arm was scratched from rubbing against the road surface, and there was a piece of metal pierced through his leg. Otherwise, just minor scratches." "Okay, is he sleeping now?" "We gave him a sedative injection and IV fluids. The medicine is still effective. He might wake up in 2 or 3 hours. You can sit here until your friend wakes up. Then call us for a checkup." After speaking, the nurse smiled kindly again, reassuring me. I felt relieved. Since I didn't ask anything else, the nurse left. The person who brought Henry said he hit the median strip. Road was as wide as a highway, straight without bends. How could he hit that? Maybe he got drunk at his sister's house and got dizzy. No, when he arrived here, he was still conscious, even after such an accident. So does that mean his mind was completely normal before the accident? I looked at my friend lying on the bed, his face wrinkled, sweating profusely, probably in pain or having nightmares. I felt sorry for him. When he wakes up, I'll find the best words to comfort him. No matter whose fault it is, being injured like this, you can't blame or scold. Later, I took out my mobile phone to pass the time. After playing for a while, when my phone's battery died, I snapped out of it. It was 10:43 p.m., so I had been sitting here for an hour. Henry was still lying there, breathing heavily, his face still wrinkled. I'm tired of this. I get up from the chair. My mind needs something to distract it. I glance around the room, It's a shared room with 3 empty beds on the other side. Since it's the weekend, everyone else has gone home, so it's just us left in this room. I wonder if there's anyone in the adjacent rooms. I can see that the whole row is dim, maybe because they've turned off the lights to sleep. When I arrived, I noticed that the room at the end of the hallway was still lit. There must be a patient in there too. I look at the neatly made beds, each with a metal locker at its head. It feels oddly empty and quiet in here. "Get out of the way!" I startle as I see Harry, his mouth wide open. What did he just shout? "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Harry shouts again, his eyes still closed tightly. It seems like something from the accident is replaying in his mind. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" His voice fades, and I don't know what to do. Is he speaking nonsense? Could it harm his stitches? Should I call a nurse to check on him? I have no experience with this. I've never taken care of a sick person before. My parents have always taken care of me. I haven't even been able to take care of myself, let alone someone else. Harry stops shouting, but he's still clutching something in his mouth, unsure if he's trying to speak or breathe. I sit silently beside his bed, mustering the courage to shake him gently, preparing for him to suddenly wake up like a possessed demon. But no, Harry just breathes steadily, as if he's sleeping again, showing no signs of anything unusual, his face returning to its usual grimace. The accident must have affected him mentally. Seeing him sleep again is a relief. Sleeping is better than waking up screaming like before. That would terrify me. Lost in thought, I lower my head to the floor. The tiles are a light color, reflecting the fluorescent light to create a dim, neither bright nor dark, ambiance. The scene is bland, with a murky white hue, nothing eye-catching. I stare at the tiles beneath my feet, devoid of patterns, slightly textured with small waves. They're made like that to increase friction and provide a clean feeling. The gaps between the tiles are a dark red-brown, resembling blood flowing on the floor. No matter how much they're cleaned, blood can't be completely removed from these crevices. It accumulates, gradually forming a dark layer that could be mistaken for dirt. Thinking aimlessly, I realize that in a hospital, blood flowing freely is normal. I shouldn't be surprised. I should understand that with so many people coming in and out every day, how much blood is shed, or how many people die. Suddenly, I hear the sound of ambulances rushing. If someone on the brink of death hears a siren, they'll probably wake up with a headache. In a way, it's a temporary form of first aid. The ambulance siren continues to blare. I wonder which emergency case this is. Out of curiosity, I open the door to peek outside. The moaning is now clearer, sounding as if it's right beside me, louder than usual. I didn't think it could be heard from here. The high-pressure lights outside illuminate the courtyard. There are a few cars parked below, but I don't see any ambulances. Yet the siren still blares. Perhaps it's on the main road. Do the hospital ambulances use loudspeakers or something? I step out onto the balcony and look down. But there's no ambulance parked in the hospital courtyard. If there were, I would see doctors rushing out. Perhaps it's parked in another area. This section of the hospital is only for post-emergency treatment. Maybe the opposite section is for emergency treatment? Oh, moaning. The last ambulance siren finally fades away, and the tranquil atmosphere is restored. The wind seems to stop blowing, and the courtyard below is illuminated by a dim yellow light. The trees are shrouded in darkness, waiting to pounce on anyone who unwittingly steps onto the courtyard. There's human speech, but I can't make out what they're saying. It's just a blur of voices. I understand that it's the sound of wheelchair wheels rolling over the tiled floor, bouncing with each gap between tiles. The movement creates sporadic sounds. The noise gets closer and closer. It's chaotic. There are voices of women, voices of men. They're in a hurry, I can see them clearly. A group of people rushes down the corridor pushing a stretcher. Someone is lying on it, but it's too dark for me to tell if it's a man or a woman. The people around the stretcher are all wearing surgical gowns. They must be doctors in this hospital. By the way they move, I can tell that this case is critical. The group rushes towards me. Instinctively, I move closer to the door to give them space. The voices remain indistinct, and I can't hear what they're saying. As the group passes by, my eyes are drawn to the stretcher out of curiosity. I have an inexplicable desire to see the face of the person lying on it. I first noticed the arm, a pale blue-white limb extending from the bed's edge, blood seeping through the blanket onto the floor. In an instant, my gaze followed that arm, tracing the bloodstains on the spread, trickling down. The figure was a woman, the blanket pulled up to her neck, her hair and face matted with blood, obscuring her features to some extent. Yet as my eyes settled on her face, it became starkly clear. Her skin pallid from blood loss, lips pallid, and her eyes wide open. I stood frozen as those deep black eyes, those hollows on her face, stared back at me. She continued to gaze, amidst the bloody strands of hair, amidst the flurry of medical scrubs rushing past. She locked her eyes onto mine, unblinking. I gripped the door frame tightly, silently fearing those black voids would pull me in, like the sensation of an immense force grasping me, causing my body to involuntarily shift. No. Those eyes remained as still as two abysses, wanting to swallow me whole. The group hurried past, urgent in their pace, seemingly oblivious to my presence by the hallway. They rushed to the end of the corridor, where a room remained lit. The door swung open and the group hastily pushed the stretcher inside. A squeeze. The door shut on its own. Suddenly, an eerie calmness descended. They rushed past in mere moments. I couldn't clearly see anyone's face among the medical staff, nor did I hear any words exchanged among them, all blurred like an old film. The only thing I saw now was the long trail of blood from the wheelchair leading into the room at the end of the hallway. I blinked, my hands raised, body leaning forward. It turns out I was still sitting on the chair, the fluorescent light glaring into my eyes, forcing me to squint. It was just a nightmare, surely just a nightmare. Terrifying, for the first time in my life, I dreamt of such a frightening scenario. Despite witnessing numerous accidents, watching countless horror movies, I had never dreamt of this. I must have dozed off on the chair. The dream was so vivid it left me feeling unsettled. It felt as if it had just happened right before my eyes. The ambulance siren, the wheelchair rolling over the tiled floor, the clamorous chatter, and those eyes staring back. How could it be a dream? Who dreams so vividly? Overwhelmed with emotions, I buried my head in my hands, refusing to think further, reassuring myself it was just a dream. It was all just a dream. Suddenly, I remembered that when I woke up, something had fallen with a loud noise. After a moment's thought, I realized it was my phone. I must have been holding it in my hand and dropped it. I bent down to find the phone. Luckily, it fell right by the foot of the chair I was sitting on, easily retrievable. Water dripping. Did someone spill water on the floor? Or has Henry woken up? I was about to lift my head to see what my friend was up to when something else caught my attention. Under the bright white tiles, a pool of blood was slowly spreading, trickling into the grooves of the floor. The blood continued to drip down, creating a rhythmic sound. It was from Henry's bed. I jerked my head up to look, an arm sticking out from the edge of the bed, blood flowing from the arm, seeping through the blanket, dripping onto the fingertips, then forming droplets onto the floor. His arm was tightly bandaged. Could he have woken up and removed the bandage to check the wound on his arm? Who does something so foolish? Can't he see checking it now won't do any good? People just bandaged him up, and he's removing it already. I silently cursed my friend, stood up intending to ask why he did that. Suddenly I froze, looking into Henry's face, my body turning ice cold, his eyes wide open, the pupils dilated, his eyes dark and lifeless, staring directly at me, and those dark voids of his eyes were fixed on me, unmoving. I almost choked, my heart racing, and stood rooted in place. Why was Henry staring at me like that? Those lifeless eyes seemed to bore into me, as if they could read all the hatred and malice within me, wanting to extract everything from me. The chilling sensation from that gaze reached my eyes, then traveled straight to my brain through my nerve endings. At that moment, I saw the girl's face appearing in my mind. Those cold black eyes belonged to her. It was her. Or was I still not awake? Someone help me, wake me up. Who closed those eyes for me? Part 1 has concluded. Please remember to subscribe to the channel to watch Part 2. Thank you very much. Goodbye and see you in the next video.